I'm Ashton Addison from Blockwest Capital for Investment Pitch Media and the Crypto Coin Show. And today on Blockchain Interviews, we have Ruben Merre, co-founder and CEO of NGRAVE. Ruben, welcome to the show, and thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, Ashton. Great to be here. How are you?
Let's dive into all things Metaverse, NFTs, big brands continuing to enter the space and make a name for themselves in the blockchain world. NGRAVE is working on some really cool initiatives as well, tying into all of that. But I know that you have special expertise in this, and there's an interesting backstory to this. So let's start, Ruben, by hearing a little bit just about yourself and your background in digital assets, and then why you started NGRAVE.
Yep. So I'm sort of the lifelong learner type, meaning I'm constantly trying to soak up new knowledge. In my studies, I studied civil engineering with a major in business. And after that, once I started working, mostly as a strategy consultant / external entrepreneur for hire, so to say, I kept studying. So I kept doing a postgraduate about every year for like 6 years. The first one was in financial markets. I did one in factory optimization, which at the time wasn't very relevant for my life. But obviously today with NGRAVE, we have a whole supply chain set up. So I was sort of doing that with the future in sight. My background in digital assets, apart from being a consultant in the space for a bit, I also, I'm very, let's say, passionate about these big mass problems such as financial empowerment. So one of my first big projects I did was I started and scaled the first automated investment platform in Belgium. The reason behind it was purely that I wanted to give the same wealth management services that, let's say, the richer echelon of the society has, to give that to the Joe next door. And that was something that went really well. In the US, it's known as robo-advisory. And I scaled that into Luxembourg, into Switzerland. And not long after, it's when I fell in the rabbit hole of crypto, and immediately was faced with these security issues, especially with my co-founder Xavier, who was in the space since 2012, 2013, and who experienced a massive hack, 44,000 Ethereum, of the project he was working for at that time. So yeah, at some point, three of us sort of collided, me, him, and Edward, the three co-founders of NGRAVE, and we decided to solve this security conundrum for good, for the full space of digital assets.
Wow, very cool background, and yeah, that is a large hack, especially when it's one of your co-founders and you personally feel the pain from that, and that's part of the entrepreneurial journey is you have a problem and now here you are to solve it. So with that said, let's dive into NGRAVE. You can just start by talking about those specific solutions and how you're utilizing this technology to bring that into the world.
Yeah, sure. So after Xavier experienced that hack with his team, they actually took the time immediately to figure out what the vulnerability was that was exploited. It was a smart contract written by Gavin Wood, the actual inventor of Solidity, the Ethereum programming language. And once they figured out what actually was the vulnerability was, they basically drained all the other ETH projects at that time. At 2017, 500 projects, $200 million in ETH. And they then sent all of the crypto back once they figured out how to fix that issue. And I think it's important because that was sort of what drove me, him, and Edward together to fix a simple problem, at least if you state it in words. And that was that we wanted to find the wallet where we were confident to put 100% of our crypto and be able to sleep at night. And I think even today, if you don't look at our solution, we still don't see it in the market. So we spent about 4 years since 2018 to build it, to set up the supply chain and the factories for the hardware wallet we've built, and to actually provide easy to use, maximum security to everyone in the space.
Very cool. And I'd love to know more about that in terms of, there are a lot of different hardware wallets out there, but what specifically did you see the need to implement it, and what makes NGRAVE special?
Yeah, so we take a real end-to-end view at security, and I haven't seen that to this day done by anybody else. So what I mean with that, well, step zero, so to say, if your decentralized user journey is how do you create a strong seed phrase? And when we started with that first problem, we actually noticed that there was not a single key out there, not even in the traditional banking space, that was created correctly. So we actually had to reinvent the key generation process.
Wow.
And that led us to the NGRAVE perfect key, which is a patented key. And we said, so step zero is create a good key. And step Z, so to say, is what happens to your crypto once you pass on to the next life and your children need access to your Bitcoin. Again, a problem that's still very difficult today. So we try to fix those two endpoints, but also every step in between. Like, how do I do safe transactions? How do I interact with DeFi solutions? And so we sort of built, in my view, the first end-to-end solution, and we focused on two things in particular. One, we would never compromise on security. So that meant that we actually built an offline solution. A zero or hardware wallet is 100% air gapped, 100% offline. Because as a hacker, once you can make that online connection, you can start an attack. And that is obviously the beginning of the end. And we also focused a lot on the easy to use aspect. So hardware wallets today are typically USB flash drives. They're not that easy to use. So we said no cables, no hassle, just the on and off button, and everything needs to be swipe and tap. So it needs to be a touchscreen experience, something that that is worth the 21st century. And you could mostly the comparisons I hear is to Apple. So it's sort of an Apple product, whereas the existing solutions typically remind us more towards the old Nokia phones.
Wow, very cool. And there's a lot of different variables with the hardware wallets. You mentioned the touchscreen and air gapped, which I think is great. But also and you also mentioned the amazing reinvention of creating the private keys, which is obviously important.
Yep.
But holding actual assets on a hardware wallet, there's different blockchains, you have to support different software. What approach have you taken towards making sure that there's important digital assets, but it's also a big burden to put in every single blockchain and every single software onto the hardware wallet?
Yeah, so I think my team is extremely experienced in building, let's say, our zero hardware wallet, for example, is the only financial product in the world today that actually has the highest security certification. So there are 7 levels in the evaluation assurance level criteria, EAL in short. Generally, hardware wallets have 5 out of 7. The best bank platform is 6. Our wallet has 7. And so we built this device from scratch. We integrated all the relevant cryptography, so to say, to actually derive the right blockchains and so on. For us, this is not really the challenge. The challenge was to build this solution. So today we already support a few of these blockchains like Ripple, Dash, Doge, Litecoin, Zcash, Bitcoin Cash, BNB, and so on. And we intend to support, let's say, all the major ones that people actually want in their wallet by the end of the year. So every few months we will add a few significant ones. But I think if you look at the 15,000 plus by now cryptocurrencies there are, many of them are either dead or don't have a real community behind them. Some of them are, because of that, quite challenging when it comes to having stable APIs in the backend. So if you have ERC20 tokens, you typically support most of the relevant ones. Today, you also have like BEP20 based on Binance. So if you support those kind of chains, you support in general 99% of the coins that people actually would want to store on a hardware wallet. So yeah, it's more a question of which ones are relevant, which ones make sense. I see some hardware wallets actually going back to the basics and say we only do BTC and ETH. So yeah, it's more a question of, is it actually relevant to put a coin on there and then keep support ongoing for it over time? So if you look at the existing wallet, you will typically see that they also don't support more than 2,000 coins, so to say.
Definitely. Yeah, well, that sounds like a pretty exhaustive list of the major blockchains. So that's good to know. And now I want to talk about just the success so far. From what I've read, it sounds like there's a huge demand and not enough supply. How has it been going with the sales and with the growth?
Yeah, so it's sort of going faster than we expected, but I think that's sort of a typical narrative in crypto, anyways, right? If we look at last year, in a single year, 2021, 200 million new unique crypto users joined the space, which is something you only see once in a decade. Maybe you saw it with mobile phones in the 2010 period. You saw it with the internet, but so it's something like beyond most people's imagination, especially if we look forward. They think that there will be 1 billion unique crypto users between 2023 2026 at the latest. So yeah, that obviously drives the demand for our product a lot. And we recently were able to, we obviously were very proactive on setting up a supply chain, thinking about the supply glut that might at some point come. So actually next week we are opening, so next week, I don't know when you publish, I would say Tuesday the 29th of March 2022, we launch our web shop. We will open it up again. It has been closed for a few weeks because we actually were out of stock due to the demand, but we will be open again, same way delivery, more or less, maybe 2 weeks stops. So yeah, actually we have quite an inventory coming in, but it's still first come, first serve. It's still not millions of wallets that we're pushing, of course, we're still early. Yeah.
Yeah, well, sounds like it's going well so far. And yeah, with those numbers in the coming years, I'm anticipating you're probably going to need a lot more hardware wallets produced to prepare for that.
Yeah, hopefully so.
Now, I was reading something about the Metaverse and NFTs as well, and I'm guessing with the ERC standards, you're able to store NFTs on the device, and maybe you can touch on the Metaverse play as well.
Yeah, sure. So as of the next quarter, we will support NFTs. I think NFTs and the Metaverse, obviously, sort of an ongoing trend for a bit, at least underneath the surface. So I think the first time I wrote about NFTs was in 2020. That was for me like the year of DeFi. 2021 was the year of actual NFT breakthrough, and then the end of 2021, 2022 is sort of the breakthrough year for the Metaverse. And yeah, I think one very important thing that typically everybody forgets once it becomes a sort of a hygiene factor for the industry is that security is at the essence of blockchain, at the essence of the Metaverse. At the essence of the Metaverse, you have blockchain. At the essence of blockchain, you have cryptography, and cryptography relies basically around a single, simple concept, which is the private key. So you need to create your private key as well. And like I mentioned, we actually had to reinvent the private key generation process because there are quite some pitfalls with the ones used today. So yeah, we are the ones who want to protect everybody in the space as everybody sort of converging, or let's say moving forward into having a true digital life with the digital avatar and so on, and everything you own is then also digital. So how do you protect that? That's the parts of your life that we actually take care of.
Incredible, Ruben. And what are you most excited for as you continue to grow out NGRAVE and just anticipating more demand just throughout the rest of 2022?
I'm not sure if I get your question.
It's like, what are you most excited for in terms of the functionalities and growing NGRAVE? Obviously you're going to be increasing sales, but is there anything else in the pipeline that you're looking to implement?
Yeah, I mean, we are working towards an ecosystem, right? So we don't want to remain a product-based company where we just sell a hardware wallet and then tell you goodbye. We actually have plans in for the next 10 years to really build out an extensive and exhaustive ecosystem where we can actually help you with every single typical issue you have in that digital world. And the Metaverse obviously opens up an endless amount of possibilities. If you even would just talk about hardware, you have like this typical motion tracking technology, cybernetics, hardware that basically makes for extended reality, so that you can actually be completely immersed in that digital way of living. And yeah, it comes with so many, let's say, issues that you might look past that are so important. So our idea is to solve several of these so that you don't have to think about them.
Great. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing the ecosystem growth. Now, for the viewers, you mentioned next week there will be more available. What is the best way to get involved with NGRAVE and to be able to acquire some of this hardware?
Yeah, so our website is ngrave.io. So it's that straightforward. If you would go on it, maybe, yeah, right now you would be able to go to our Metaverse store in Decentraland. And if it might be closed by the time you actually visit it, the web shop will be open. So it will be right there for you to order. And yeah, also have a look through our website. We have a lot of articles on how to actually protect your crypto, not just in the DeFi space, but also in what you have to think about when you go interact with the metaverse.
Very cool. Thank you so much, Ruben, for taking the time to explain this all. I'm impressed with the reinvention of private keys. I think that's super important. Private keys are everything in crypto. If you don't have that, you have nothing. So thank you for your great work and contributions to the blockchain ecosystem. All the best with NGRAVE moving forward. I'm going to go check out the Metaverse store.
Thank you.
And I'm looking forward to seeing the next release of the hardware. So let's follow up in the near future.
Amazing. Thank you, Ashton.